Just 10 seconds of rapid heartbeat, how could it lead to a stroke? Hasn't everyone felt that at least once? Could just a few offbeat heart rhythms really steal your speech, your memory, even your life? I know you're asking yourself these very questions. Because Mr. Arthur asked me the same thing just hours before he could no longer speak. That day, I walked into the recovery room. He was lying there, fully conscious but silent. His right hand trembled slightly, lips moved as if trying to say something but no sound came. His daughter leaned in close, tears flowing. Just because she couldn't hear a simple hello. And what shocked me the most was, only 24 hours earlier, he was walking around his yard, eating breakfast with his wife, laughing as usual. No warning signs. No numbness, no facial droop, no headache, no dizziness. Just one single unusual thing, about 10 seconds of rapid, irregular heartbeat. And he said what so many others have said to me, probably just the coffee was too strong this morning. Then he dismissed it. The heart rate monitor he wore every morning that day, it sat untouched on the kitchen counter. And by evening, he had a stroke. I'm a brain specialist with over 20 years of experience in neurology and senior care. I've witnessed hundreds of strokes that came without clear warning. But no case hit me as hard as that one. Because it began with a detail everyone assumes is harmless. As a brain doctor, I was truly shocked to realize. Just 10 seconds of fast, irregular heartbeat, if it happens at the wrong time, can be the very first sign of a silent stroke. And most people have no idea. If you've ever felt your heart racing suddenly while resting, experienced brief palpitations that went away, noticed a loved one looking tired but brushing it off, then this video is for you. Because in just a few minutes, I'll walk you through what really happens during those 10 silent seconds in the heart and why the brain ends up paying the price first. At the end of this video, I'll show you a simple habit to check your stroke risk each morning. No devices, no machines, just a tiny change. You don't need to panic. But you do need to listen. Because sometimes, the brain doesn't scream. It only whispers. And hopes you hear in time. Because sometimes, the brain doesn't scream. It only whispers. And hopes you hear in time. But sadly, that morning, Mr. Arthur didn't listen. He ignored the whisper in his chest, thinking it was nothing. And from that very moment, those 10 seconds that seemed so harmless, everything began to change. So what really happened inside his body when his heart skipped rhythm? Why could something so brief, painless, and subtle lead to a stroke no one saw coming? To answer that, I want to take you back to that morning in Mr. Arthur's familiar kitchen, where everything started on what seemed like an ordinary day, but led to a turn no one expected. Just 10 seconds of rapid heartbeat and everything shifted off course. Doesn't sound too scary, does it? But that very moment, so small that Mr. Arthur didn't even mention it, was the beginning of a chain of events no one could have predicted. That morning, it was drizzling. Mr. Arthur woke up earlier than usual. His wife was still asleep, his daughter had just left for work. The house was quiet, filled only with the soft patter of rain on the roof and a steaming cup of tea on the breakfast table. He sat down, opened the newspaper, leaned in to pour the tea like he did every morning. And then suddenly, he paused. His right hand rested on his chest. A slight furrow in his brow. His eyes narrowed, as if sensing something unfamiliar happening inside his body. His heart beat faster. Not pounding. Just different. Not the kind of flutter from watching sports. Not from emotion or stress. Just quietly irregular on what seemed like an entirely peaceful morning. He glanced at his watch, the one that tracked heart rate, but then he wasn't wearing it today. It was sitting on the kitchen counter, just a few steps away. He thought, it's fine. I'm probably okay today. Then picked up the newspaper and kept reading like nothing had happened. Just 10 seconds. Not enough time to steep a cup of tea. Not enough to finish reading a morning headline. But enough to permanently change a man's ability to speak, move, and remember, a man who had seemed perfectly healthy. And as I stood in the hospital room watching Mr. Arthur mouth words he could no longer say, unable to call out his daughter's name, I couldn't help but ask myself, what really happened in his brain during those exact 10 seconds? Why could a fleeting heartbeat irregularity interrupt blood flow to the brain, causing damage that no one noticed until it was too late? The answer isn't in how it feels. It's not in any obvious symptom. It lies deep within a quiet, yet brutally precise, mechanism between the heart and the brain. In the next section, I'll explain in the simplest way possible what unfolded inside Mr. Arthur's body, and why one whisper from the heart could become an emergency cry from the brain. Are you ready? Let's keep going. The moment the brain was left behind, a biological explanation, you might not feel anything. But your brain is silently struggling. Let's go back to that moment, a rainy morning, a hot cup of tea, 10 seconds of rapid heartbeat. Just a small disruption inside the chest. But what no one saw is that in that moment, Mr. Arthur's brain was left behind. When the heart beats normally, it contracts rhythmically, pumping blood steadily to the brain every second. Blood carries oxygen. Oxygen feeds every brain cell, constantly working, remembering, controlling speech, coordinating movement. But when the heart beats irregularly, especially in brief episodes of atrial fibrillation, which are uneven, unsynchronized heartbeats, a very dangerous thing happens. Blood doesn't pump consistently to the brain. It may slow down, get interrupted, or worse, pool in the heart, forming a clot. And if that clot leaves the heart, it can travel through blood vessels straight to the brain, block a small artery, and cause part of the brain to suffocate instantly. I know what you're going to ask: could just 10 seconds really be that dangerous? The answer is, yes. Because just 3-5 seconds without oxygen to the brain can cause lightheadedness. At 10 seconds, under the wrong conditions, it can damage small areas of brain tissue permanently. And the scariest part, you won't feel pain. You won't know your brain is being deprived of blood. No sharp pain. No chills. No stabbing sensation. It just silently suffers. And if the lack of blood lasts too long, it will shut down the function of the affected region. Like Mr. Arthur, who lost his ability to speak. Others might lose memory, or control of their limbs. And what startled me is this. Brief atrial fibrillation, the cause of those few seconds of irregular heartbeat, often can't be detected with a regular heart checkup. It comes quickly and disappears before you can measure it. That's why most older adults don't know they're at risk. And that's also why we need to learn to listen to the heart, not with ears but with awareness. Just like Mr. Arthur, he didn't hear anything. But if he had counted his pulse that morning, or shared how he felt with a loved one, it's very possible things wouldn't have gone so far. So what can you do, right at home, to detect those irregular heartbeats before it's too late? Right after this, I'll guide you through how to monitor your heart and protect your brain every morning in just 3 minutes, no medical equipment, no doctor, just a watch. And your full attention. Let's keep going together. Because sometimes, what saves your life isn't medicine. It's a moment of timely awareness. The warning signs most people ignore. If the brain doesn't alert you with pain, then how does it warn you? This question makes many patients look at me in disbelief. They used to think a stroke would come with severe pain, or some obvious event. But no. In reality, the brain doesn't cry for help with a scream. It whispers. With extremely subtle signals, quiet and easily lost in everyday life. So what are those signs? Let me tell you 5 very subtle signs, so subtle that most older adults never notice them, or if they do, they dismiss them. Sign 1, rapid or irregular heartbeat while at rest. Not after exercising. Not from excitement. Just sitting still, or just waking up suddenly feeling the chest beat oddly fast for a few seconds. Have you ever felt that? Many people tell me, probably just still groggy from sleep. But no. Those exact moments are what you need to pay attention to most. Because when the heart starts beating off rhythm even briefly, it might mean blood isn't reaching the brain steadily, and your brain is holding its breath for a few seconds without you knowing it. And here is a second sign also frequently overlooked. Sign 2, mild palpitations or fluttering sensation with no clear reason. A moment where your heart skips. Like your body stumbles for half a beat. No pain, just unease. Like stepping off the wrong stair in a dream. You see, it's not frightening. It just feels subtly different. And because it's subtle, it's easy to dismiss. But for those over 60, unexplained palpitations are the first knock of atrial fibrillation, one of the top culprits of silent strokes. And then, sometimes the warning doesn't come through the heart but through your thinking itself. Sign 3, sudden fatigue or trouble concentrating without cause. Reading the newspaper, and you forget the last line. Making tea, and you forget whether you added sugar. It's not aging. It's not Alzheimer's. It might be temporary lack of blood to the brain for just a few seconds. Then everything returns. But the tiny damaged spot stays inside your brain. When the brain lacks blood, it doesn't function smoothly. You don't feel pain, you just feel more tired, more distracted. And then you blame it on restless sleep or a busy day. But sometimes, that's a warning worth hearing. The shift from head to whole body can also signal something is off. Sign 4, lightheadedness when changing position, especially in the morning. You sit up fast and feel dizzy, see stars for a few seconds. You drink water and move on with your day. But that may be a moment when the brain didn't get enough blood and the heart skipped a beat. Changing posture quickly doesn't always cause dizziness. But if you often feel this, especially when going from lying down to standing, see it as a sign the brain isn't receiving oxygen in time. And finally, a very small, fleeting sign but extremely important. Sign 5, brief tingling in hands, feet, or lips, then it goes away. A light tingling, not like when your arm falls asleep. Just one hand, or one side of the lip. And it doesn't last. Just enough to make you pause. Then forget. But that's exactly what makes it dangerous. Because the brain area controlling movement or sensation may have lacked blood just for a few seconds. And when these tingling spells repeat, you may be living with mini strokes with no clear symptoms every week. Do you recognize anything familiar in what I just said? If so, know that you are not alone. Many people have been through it and went on with life as if nothing had happened. Until one day, it comes back. No longer mild. No longer fleeting. But a real stroke. But you're luckier than them. Because now you know early. You're listening. And I'm here not to scare you but to put in your hands a 3-minute morning check, to help you detect those silent irregular rhythms before it's too late. Just right after this, I'll show you how to do it yourself at home, with just a watch, a piece of paper and a bit of mindfulness. No medical equipment. Nothing complicated. Just a small act that could save an entire life. Let's keep going together. Because maybe, tomorrow morning, when you first wake up, that's exactly when your brain needs you to listen most. Practical guide, how to check your heart and protect your brain at home, just 3 minutes each morning to hear the silent signals from your heart and brain. I know, there are small things in life we always keep putting off. Checking your morning heartbeat sounds simple, yet never quite becomes a habit. But dear friend, if you can spend 3 minutes tending to the garden on your porch, then you surely deserve to spend those 3 minutes on your own body, the most important place you live in. Today, I'll guide you through it gently like you're just listening to the rhythm of your own life. The 3-minute morning check. You can do it right at home. Step 1. Sit up gently and stabilize your breathing as soon as you wake up. Don't jump out of bed. Give your body a few seconds to wake up with you. Sit up slowly, inhale deeply, then exhale softly. Repeat 2-3 times until your body feels calm. A small reminder, your body is like a piece of music. Let it begin each day with a soothing melody. When your breathing is steady, your heart will beat more smoothly and your brain will get enough blood to stay alert all day long. Step 2. Place your hand on your wrist or left chest and simply listen. Use 2 fingers to gently touch your wrist below the thumb. Or more simply, place your hand lightly over your left chest. No need to count yet. Just feel. Is it steady? Any skips? Like a steady drum or sudden fast beats? A gentle tip, listening to your morning heartbeat isn't about fear, it's to know how your body is starting the day. Like checking if the sun is out to pick the right jacket. Step 3. Count for 30 seconds, then double it when you're ready. Open a watch or phone. Count your heartbeats for 30 seconds, then double the number for your beats per minute. Example, if you count 36 beats in 30 seconds, that's 72 beats per minute. A soft reminder, normally, 60-100 beats per minute is fine. But the key isn't just the number, it's whether the rhythm is steady. If it feels off today, don't panic. Just write it down. Because sometimes it's just from little sleep, or a long dream. Step 4. Write down your feeling in the morning. Health journal. Just jot down a few lines, like, Wednesday 72 beats steady, feel good. Friday slight flutter for 5 seconds, back to normal. Saturday hard to count, felt like a skipped beat. A gentle thought. Writing it down is like having a little morning chat with yourself. And if one day you need to tell your kids or your doctor, you won't have to rely on a fuzzy memory. It's like keeping little letters to remember which days were calm, and which were stormy. Add 2 tiny habits to steady your heart and smooth blood flow to the brain. Breathe 4-4-6, relax your heart in 1 minute. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 6 seconds. Repeat 5 times, while sitting quietly or gazing out the window. A sweet reminder, this way of breathing is like soothing your heart each morning. When you breathe slow, the heart settles. When the heart settles, the brain gets enough blood, and you feel more awake than coffee ever could. Stretch to greet the sun or walk a few rounds at home. Just open the window, reach both arms up high 3 times. Walk a few laps around the room or the backyard. Don't treat it like a workout, just see it as a way to say hello to the new day. A heartfelt share, each step you take sends blood flowing to your brain. Each ray of sunshine you touch is the most natural way for your body to feel joy. You might live alone, but your body is always your most loyal companion. Just 3 minutes, but it might buy you decades. Without a wheelchair, you don't need a doctor every morning. You just need yourself and a simple watch. Not everyone gets the chance to know in advance. But today, you do, and you know how to listen to even the quietest signals from your heart. Mr. Arthur started the same way, by counting his heartbeat each morning. It took time, but that very habit helped him catch the danger just in time. And in the next part, I'll tell you that beautiful journey. From a man who once couldn't speak to the moment he laughed loud with his granddaughter in the spring park. If you'd like to hear the rest, stay with me. Because sometimes, what preserves memory begins with a habit so small, it almost goes unnoticed. He thought he was just a little tired, but a week later he completely lost his voice. The story that gave me chills, a miraculous recovery from forgotten heartbeats. Mr. Arthur couldn't speak again right after that minor stroke. His voice, once as loud as a bronze bell, was now just faint, unclear whispers. But he didn't complain. Instead, he started to relearn everything from scratch. Each day he practiced speaking every sound, every word, like a child learning to talk for the first time. The first word he managed to say was his granddaughter's name. Ellie. The little girl was just 7 years old, but she always sat by his side, holding the alphabet board, patiently waiting for him to form each sound. The two of them were persistent, as if playing a secret game only they understood. And then he practiced walking again. Not in the hospital, but in the park near his house. At first, just 3 steps, then 5 steps. Ellie walked ahead, turned around, and reached out her hand. Day by day, Mr. Arthur took a few more steps, and his heart strangely enough also became more stable. But what touched me the most wasn't the steps he could take, or the sounds he could make. It was the tiny habit he started right after being discharged and has kept up to this day. Each morning, before brushing his teeth or drinking tea, he would sit right on the edge of the bed, his right hand placed on his left wrist. He counted his heartbeat. Not out of fear, but as a reminder to himself, I'm still here. I still have a chance. Ellie sat next to him, mimicking him, counting along. There were rainy mornings, and some days when sunlight streamed through the window, lighting up their faces like a warm painting. And in those mornings, there was no illness, no stroke, only 2 people living fully together. I asked him what made him keep up the habit so consistently. He looked off into the distance, then slowly said, his voice clearer than before, I'm not afraid of dying, doctor. I'm just afraid that one day, I'll be sitting here, and my mind drifts away. I won't remember how to teach Ellie to ride a bike. I stood silently. Because in that sentence, there was no complaint, no regret. Only love deep and mindfulness. And from that moment until now, the small, old watch has always been on his left wrist. It's not just for checking heart rate. It's like a memory keeper. A red thread reminding him every morning that he can still love, still remember, and still live the way he wishes to. You see? Some things may seem too late, but they might actually be the perfect time to begin. And from Arthur's story, I began paying more attention to those who still think they're healthy, but within them, something quiet may already be unfolding. In the next part, I'll tell you about some surprising contrasts between someone who recognized the signs early and someone who thought they were fine. Because sometimes, the feeling of I'm still okay is what causes us to miss the golden moment to protect our brain. And if you're still listening now, please pay attention to yourself and to the one you love most. Just 10 seconds of observation might make a difference for an entire lifetime. Same symptom, but one lives healthy, the other loses his voice forever. You know, Mr. Arthur wasn't the only one who experienced irregular heartbeats in the morning. A close friend of his named Gerald also went through a brief moment of rapid heartbeat right after waking up. But Gerald did something different. When he felt his heart racing for about 10 seconds, just 10 short seconds, Gerald didn't ignore it. Even though there was no pain, no dizziness, he still sensed something off. Instead of reassuring himself it's probably just anxiety, he decided to go to the clinic that very morning. Simply to be sure. The result was that the doctor found a brief episode of tachycardia, not dangerous yet, but if left unchecked, it could easily progress into atrial fibrillation. Gerald was given mild medication, fitted with a 24-hour monitor, followed by a routine of breathing exercises, balanced meals and scheduled movement every day. 4 months later, he's still speed walking, speaking fluently, and just signed up for a hiking trip with his senior group in Colorado. I call him the survivor before the damage happened. You see? Same symptom, heart racing for a few seconds after waking up. But 2 choices and 2 paths. One chose to wait and had to relearn how to say his granddaughter's name. One chose to get checked right away and still has the strength to tell stories to his grandkids each night. I'm not saying this to scare you. I just want you to pause just for a moment and ask yourself one simple question. If tomorrow morning, my heart races for a few seconds, will I choose to be Arthur, or Gerald? The answer may decide how you live the rest of your life. And you don't need to do anything grand. You just need to not ignore those 10 seconds in the morning. Because often, the quietest signs are the most important ones to keep a whole life intact. Small choice, different life. You've just walked with me through a journey that many may not have expected. Just from a heart that beats fast for 10 seconds every morning, we've seen a life split into two paths. Mr. Arthur, who ignored a small signal, lost his ability to speak for months. While Mr. Gerald, who chose to pause and check, continues to live well, live happily, and live fully each day. The difference wasn't age. It wasn't medical history. It was one very small choice, to listen or to ignore. And in the world of those over 60, where mornings often begin quietly, slowly, we need to learn to hear the whispers from within even more. Because those irregular heartbeats, even if only for a few seconds, could be the first and only warning before the brain speaks through a stroke. I don't share this to frighten you, but to give you a little light to guide your mornings. Start with the simplest action: sit still for a few seconds after waking up, place your hand on your wrist, and count your heartbeat. If something feels off, ask, check. You don't need to diagnose. You just need to care. Because you deserve to be loved. And to live every last moment fully with your memory, your voice, and your freedom. If today's story touched you, please tap like so I know you're still here. Leave a comment, maybe just a note to yourself. And if you have a loved one over 60, please share this video with them. You may have just saved a memory, a voice, or a pair of fading eyes no one has noticed yet. And don't forget, here at Thrive 60 Plus, we'll keep telling the rest of the stories, about sleep, memory, trembling steps in the morning, or a peaceful afternoon suddenly shaken by a fleeting moment of dizziness. Follow Thrive 60 Plus, because every small story may be the biggest key to helping you live longer, clearer, and happier each day.